Travel isn't just about destinations, it's about the people you meet, the cultures you immerse yourself in, the stories you carry home. I'm Relebogile Mabocha, and on my travel feature, I take you on a journey beyond the guidebook. Each week, I connect with fellow travelers, insiders, and storytellers to bring you the heart of every place. Whether it's a hidden gem right here in South Africa or a dream destination abroad. Join me as we travel through conversations, memories, and inspiration. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Right, it's time to talk travel and tourism. And today, firstly, we welcome back to studio travel writer and publicist Allison Foat, whose blog, Cape Town Diva, is always a wonderful place to visit if you feel like drooling over other people's travel experiences and wistfully wishing that you were on leave and going away with them in your suitcase. You will feel particularly strongly that way if you go onto that blog today because, oh my gosh, the photographs that Allison has shared of her recent sand safari in Namibia are absolutely to die for, and they're the reason she's with us in studio to talk about it. Allison, welcome back.
Thank you. Let me just say those are Peter Frost's photos for the most part. Let me not take credit. I would love to usurp him, but I cannot.
Unbelievably beautiful. And not your typical, I mean, I'm used to you jet around all over the world, traveling to exotic locations and cruising and going to exciting places. But the stillness of this trip seems quite different from anything else you've done. If you look at those images, there is a sense of vastness and of calm, I think are the two words I thought of.
That's really well put and so succinct, considering it was into these three different journeys into three really remote, very off the beaten track, true wild places, which is where wilderness is so brilliant at curating these experiences into places you think you just cannot believe it, that there is just a tiny enclave of an accommodation and then this endless expanse of very ancient landscapes, very old territories that, you really look hand to heart. You just cannot believe what you are seeing. It is magnificent.
You've said the words wilderness. For those who are not familiar with the brand, this is the company that has curated the experience you had.
Yes,
right?
They're one of a few really choice, outstanding safari outfits. And this safari was really purposeful in terms of going to see these places where you could then see desert-adapted animals like this rare black rhino, all those sorts of creatures, or just go for the dune experience, like a sausage or just to take you to, via sometimes a few plane trips in a little Cessna, that's how remote they are, to take you to regions that are really thriving because they're so remote and they are untouched and still preserved so magnificently, because this is what wilderness does as well, of course, is they've got so many of these hectares under conservation. They're like the safe keepers of these exquisitely untouched gorgeous places.
I'm listening to you thinking how wonderful to know that they're still there, and in the same breath, how devastating to know that they're only there because we are not there in great numbers.
Yes.
That's the flip side of the conversation. But the fact that these incredibly remote places have been preserved in this way is so wonderful. You've been to three very different experiences as part of this trip through Namibia. Yes. Which one do you want to start? Are we going to do it geographically from north to south, or in the order that you visited them?
I think I can do the order, which we started at a place called Little Kulala, which is very close to Sossusvlei, which is why most people choose it. Okay. They've got a private access point from this lodge. Again, a handful of lodges, suites, very remote. It is exquisitely appointed. With outfits like this, the Safari Lodge is really built to all the eco-specs, sustainability standards. So you know that you're treading very lightly. So that is a big plus for me always when I travel. And you could do these incredible excursions. Our first excursion was jumping into the safari van, and going to the top of a low mountain with this exquisitely appointed plateau, and then having drinks. Safari guides are the wizards of the wilderness. They just procure these amazing snacks in the middle of nowhere. There's a linen cloth, and there's a G&T, and there's whatever. It was fantastic. And then watching how the light was dipping and how this mist rolls in, and you beautiful. Just think you're in some kind of a movie. It's just you. There were, that's the beauty about these trips. They are high end, and it's a handful of people. It's three of you, and your guide, and he's just telling the stories, weaving the tales, and bringing you back from what was all these years ago. It's very immersive and very emotional. So,
I mean, what you've described makes me think of the movie Dune and those landscapes of just
yes.
sort of wave after wave of sand mountains. They're not
Yes.
even dunes, they're so huge. And those ripples in the sand.
Yes.
I believe there's also an opportunity to experience them from the sky as part of this experience.
Yes, I didn't get that good fortune because it was quite a quick trip to Little Kalala, but we drove early to Sossus Fair to catch the light.
Yeah.
Peter Frost with his camera getting the sun tipping over the dune and changing the entire visual. So as we were driving, before the sun was up, we saw these balloons lifting into the air, and that pastel pinky mauve sky. You can just picture it. I mean, it was glorious. So that is on my bucket list for sure. But that is the aerial view. But never mind if you don't get the hot air balloon, your actual plane trip in is your sky safari. It starts there. And there you see the lay of the land, quite literally, how the geology morphs from these blackened rocks to these rolling orange dunes, to all the pantones and the palettes you can't even imagine. So you get to start there and you know what you're in for. That really gets your heart racing. You think, oh my gosh, if it's like this, I can't wait to be down there.
Immersed in on the
exactly.
ground. Okay. So that was Little Kulala at Sossus Vlei.
Yes.
So for those who know the vast clay pan,
Yes.
it is, I mean, a lot of people, as you say, will make a stop there on a trip to Namibia.
Yes.
But your next two took you into really, really remote spaces. Desert rhino camp. And when you mentioned the desert adapted rhino, didn't know such a thing existed, Allison, and didn't know that there was this dedicated space for their conservation. Are we allowed to talk about it is my first question, because I know when rhino conservation is under discussion, you have to be very, very careful.
Very good point, very good question, but yes, you are. I mean, this camp exists purely for rhino tracking, and Wilderness has partnered with the Save the Rhino Trust. So the beauty of this is that it really is a purposeful visit. You know you're there for the rhino. You know that just by sheer virtue of the fact that you're staying there, you're contributing to these conservation efforts. So what's such a joy is you get to meet these rangers over lunch at the camp, which is again a very small, just a handful of chalets that have just been reimagined, gorgeous, and they will then unpack their story and how the community is vested. You know, there's been no poaching there since 2001.
Wow.
So what happens is people go, yeah, but you know, someone's going to approach maybe a villager who's struggling to make ends meet, and someone's going to offer this enormous amount of money for a horn. But they are so invested, they know the value of this type of tourism in terms of how it boosts the villages' microeconomies and all these communities benefit, that the minute there's a stranger in the zone, in this enormous area, they are clocked and they're reported, and people might come with ill intent, but they don't get very far.
That's fascinating.
It's a very interesting rally with the community around these conservation efforts because they directly benefit. It's not just a strapline. These communities are winning with mobile mediclinics and water supplies and all sorts of things. And it's just a wonderful thing to actually see that is in reality really happening on the ground.
I mean, it's wonderful to hear a story of it actually working, because so often you hear that might be the very good intention set for some of these reserves, that the communities in the outskirts will benefit, they'll get jobs inside the reserve, and there will be spillover of the finances back into the communities, and so often it just doesn't work in practice.
True.
So
But
it's
this-
wonderful to hear this feedback. Okay, so that's the Desert Rhino Camp at Tomorrowland. Before we run out of time, you also went to the very, very, very northwestern top corner of Namibia to a place called Serikafema. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, okay, so that actually blew my hair back and then some. That was, for me, quite extraordinary in terms of the landscapes. And as you say, Serikafema is you can't get any more north. It's right there. The Skeleton Coast is just over the mountain. So there's this very interesting switch up between the different climates. So you might get some mist and some fog and you think, what? How on earth? But that's the influence of coming in from the coast over the mountains. And it's a very brutal environment. So you've got dunes, you've got very strange granite outcrops. It almost looks like a Superman kryptonite jagged edge situation or Mordor. And then you'll go over the rise, and the dunes are like sometimes perpendicular. And this is where our guide Clement was just so incredible. You go down and up, and all of a sudden you come into this oasis where you've got the Kunene River just going through this Marienfluss Conservancy and this valley, and it's this lush situation. You've got a camp right on the water's edge, and all sorts of interesting wildlife that you've not seen before. So amazing bird life and crocodiles and unbelievable. So that was the complete opposite, but it sort of merges all those different landscapes you've already been to into one space. And again, I mean, on a mountaintop, watching the sun come up, and you're seeing these unfolding shades of the blues and the mauves and the pinks and the orange carmine sunrise like I've never seen. And I have been lucky enough to see a few. But, oh my goodness, it really is... It's like a religious experience, but I say that really quite pointedly.
Yeah.
So if you can, this is the only place you can't self-drive to. You can for the first two. You have to take the plane trip. I think it's 2 flights actually, and then a short drive. But once you're there, and then you do your dune walks. I mean, you're stopping. Clement was showing us adder tracks in the sand.
Oh, wow.
So, and he was there with a guide he was training. So he is head of guide training for wilderness. Been there for 22 years or something. And you want a guide, they're the game changer. You know, not all safaris are created equal. I've said it before.
Yeah.
The passion and the absolute joy of the job, he just loves it. You know, he's a Namibian, and you can actually ask for him. So I would highly recommend that you do that if you're planning a trip into these regions, because he knows them like the back of his hand.
Clement was the name.
Clement Lawrence is
Clement
his name.
Lawrence. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Allison, let's just a couple of logistics here. You said the first 2 are self-drivable.
Yes.
So you could drive all the way from Cape Town up to Namibia and then into, I mean, it's a long, long drive.
It is.
But you could do it on your own.
Yes.
Alternatively, I would assume you fly into Windhoek, and then
Yes.
from there, can you hire a vehicle to do this, or would you be collected by the camps? How does
Well,
it work?
you met from the get-go
Okay.
at Windhoek International. So we were met by Clement and the team, and then you popped into a safari van and you start driving. This instance, because of the trips and our itinerary, we were flying from the get-go.
Okay.
So we just did small plane trips from A to B to B to C, and then in between that, once you've gotten off at these little tiny airport hubs,
strips,
those landing strips, then you're popped into a van and you're taken. And it's usually quite short drives or a longer drive, but it's all just part of it. You know, you get to see everything from a different perspective. Your eyes will just like
pop out on
Yeah,
stalks
exactly.
by the side of things.
I can't even think of the word. It's mind-blowing, really.
I know you've said July to October is the best time to consider a visit like that in terms of the temperatures.
It's
I
cooler.
assume?
It's slightly cooler.
Okay. And last thing to ask, remind me, do we need visas to go into? I've never been to Namibia.
You do not.
You don't, do
no.
you? Okay.
And you can have a SADC rate, because any African citizen qualifies for a discounted rate. It's all on Wilderness website, which, if I'm not mistaken, is Wilderness Destinations.
Okay.
.co.za or com, I'm not sure. But you just check that out. And then these rates are obviously super useful for South African citizens.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it all adds up and...
Quite quickly, yeah. So wilderness destinations are what you are Googling, and the Sand Safari into Namibia, a Little Kulala, Desert Rhino Camp, and Serakafema are the 3 camps Allison visited. Please go and check out her blog, CapeTownDiva.com. The most extraordinary photographs that will really capture you've heard it in your voice, the colours, the sense of space, the vastness of the landscape around you. I felt so jealous looking at them, Allison. Thank you for coming in to share the experience with us today.
Such a pleasure.
And please go and look and read more about it and see those amazing images on Allison's blog site, CapeTownDiva.com.
Travel isn't just about destinations. It's about the people you meet, the cultures you immerse yourself in, the stories you carry home. I'm Relebogile Mabotja, and on my travel feature, I take you on a journey beyond the guidebook. Each week, I connect with fellow travelers, insiders, and storytellers to bring you the heart of every place, whether it's a hidden gem right here in South Africa or a dream destination abroad. Join me as we travel through conversations, memories, and inspiration. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.